Welcome to Discover Indie Film. I'm your host, Jeff Howard, and I've got Sarah Cugini and Brandon Lay with me. Hey, you two.
Hello.
Hey.
And when I say with me, I mean on Zoom. They are in Pennsylvania. I'm in California, so we had to record this on Zoom. So if you have a problem with the audio quality, don't blame Sarah or Brandon. Don't blame Jeff. Blame Zoom. Although actually, you have a quality microphone and I do too. So Zoom tends to not suck if you have a decent mic.
Yeah, we kind of got prepared for it. The one small thing is we are sharing the mic, where if it was like two separate ones, we'd be right on top of them.
Right.
But
That's true. Okay, so these two are responsible for two films I know of that have been at the festivals I program. So I'm going to quickly name the films. Their feature film, Bitter Taste of Ginger, was at Sherman Oaks Film Festival in 2021. Took home the Grand Jury Award for Best Feature Film, Arthouse Experimental. Sarah took home the award for Best Actress in a Lead Role. And then the next year, the other festival that I programmed, Film Invasion Los Angeles, Bitter Taste of Ginger was again an official selection. And Sarah again took home Best Actress in a Lead Role. And I'll add in that festival, their short film Cueball was also an official selection. So bravo to both of you for your award-winning work. I know you're proud of it. I just learned in the previous podcast of this, where it was just an interview, when it was all an interview, that you are now at 26 festivals for Ginger, Bitter Taste of Ginger.
Yeah, we got quite the... I've been keeping the running tally. We're at 26 official selections, 44 nominations, and 12 wins thus far.
Well deserved.
Thank you.
And people should go to livingproofpictures.com to check out your work and check out the collaborations between you and Sarah. But this podcast ain't about that. This is a 4 questions episode where Sarah and Brandon are going to answer 3 favorite films, an underrated film, an overrated film, and a lesser known film that people should seek out. I will comment, but I certainly enjoy just listening. So I believe Sarah is going to go first and name some favorite films.
Okay. So definitely Howl's Moving Castle. It's a Miyazaki film. Let's see. Napoleon Dynamite. That was one of the first films I was ever obsessed with. Would watch it every single day. Knew the whole like all of the dialogue, everything. And I would have to say that's probably the film that got me interested in film. And then third favorite, oh boy.
Although you can call it at 2, but you want to name, by the way, Howl's is like just a beautiful, magical film. And my internet's
the Miyazaki
probably
films,
slow.
that's my favorite.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
And I was going to say, out of all of the Miyazaki films, that's definitely my favorite, is Howl's Moving Castle for sure.
Yeah, good pick.
Yes.
For sure. And Napoleon is, talk about a creative film that comes out of left field and it's just original as hell.
Oh, absolutely. And it's just that's such a, I don't know. It spoke to me. That film spoke to me. I felt like I was in Napoleon's shoes a lot.
That pick explains a lot about you.
Yes, it does. I know.
Well, and I love what it says about art too, because there may not be, it's hard to name a stranger character than Napoleon Dynamite.
Yes.
And yet in all his strangeness, we overwhelmingly identify with it.
Absolutely. There's always something about him that somebody can identify with. It's hard to explain, but it could definitely identify with him a lot, especially when the film came out. I think I was in 7th, 8th grade, and it's not a great time during adolescence. So I just kind of looked at him, saw him as my hero, like, oh, he's weird, but he doesn't care. Like that's just who he is. He's living his life. So yeah, definitely a film that I identify with 100%.
For sure. For a third, you want to name a third?
Yes. I'm just trying to think. I have so many. Time Bandits.
Beautiful.
Love Time Bandits. I grew up with that film. I just thought it was so interesting, and just all of the characters, and it was one of those films where it was showcasing little people actors, but not as like elves or playing dwarfs or anything like that. That wasn't even put into question. Like, they were just there. And I thought that was so great. And I don't know, being a kid, that didn't even occur to me. I was like, oh, they're just going on adventures. So it was great. It was a great film. Love that film.
Brilliant film by look, I'm a huge Terry Gilliam fan. I cannot get, for me, the film Brazil is on my top three because I think Terry Gilliam is a genius. And I was once on an elevator with him in Telluride, and I could not speak. And I'm sure he almost never gets recognized. I still kick myself that I didn't turn to him and go, I just think you're a genius. I just want to tell you you're a genius. Like, instead, I just pretended I didn't recognize him, because when you grow up in LA, you think you just should ignore everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my Terry Gilliam film is The Fisher King is the one for me that was a very important film in my childhood. Like, I love me some Gilliam, but yeah, and it's the least Gilliam film probably. But yeah, the marriage of like magical realism and two just the male lead wise. I mean, there's many great performances and Plummer, Amanda Plummer, and the woman who won Best Supporting, her name's escaping me at the moment. Oh no, I hate, you're looking it up, right? Yeah, save me. Oh, I feel terrible. She won Best Supporting Actress that year. I want to say it starts with an M. Anyway, the towering performances with Jeff Bridges and Robin Williams in that are just awesome.
Absolutely. Well, here, but I assume it's not in your top three.
It is not. No.
All right, here,
But
let's get your top three.
once people start going in Gilliam, like I got to get in my Fisher King. Like, man, love me some Fisher King. Fisher King is definitely in my top. I have a top 100 list because that's how difficult it is for me to narrow down my favorite films, and it is definitely in there. And for a long time was in my top 10. Narrowing it down to 3 is difficult. I'm glad you don't just ask for 1, but I'm gonna go with the ones that I have picked out on Letterboxd. They let you have the 4 up there. I'll give you my 3, and I'm gonna have to give you the 4th because I can't not mention it when someone asks, because it's one of the most important films ever made and one of my favorites, which is Rashomon, Akira Kurosawa's movie from 1950 with Toshiro Mifune in it. When I saw it for the first time when I was a young man, I loved it and I liked it very much, but I didn't realize just how amazing it was until a few years later when I watched it again and was like, what did I miss the first time? Because this is the most important like piece of storytelling. And like, it's so powerful, and the exploration of truth, but also how people are shaped by the lies that they tell themselves. It's not as much about truth as it is about character and people, and and how we shape ourselves around what lies we choose to tell about ourselves. The bandit is willing to admit that he's a murderer and a rapist, but he's not willing to admit that he was at all scared in the fight. Like, there's the exploration of character in that is just phenomenal. Yeah, beautiful film. So I can't not say that one. Just can't. But the 3 would be Hannah and Her Sisters, Woody Allen's Hannah and Her Sisters. Problematic filmmaker, of course, but Hannah and Her Sisters is so dear to me. It is a perfect film, dialogue and performances, and how it looks at anxiety and how it looks at the inner workings of our mind, like the internal monologue that we have. And for the longest time, I did not know that everyone doesn't have that. because I have it. I grew up with, I've always had an internal monologue. And I was having this conversation, and somebody was like, "What are you talking about?" And doesn't have that. Like I just assumed everybody had an internal monologue going constantly. And then I was like, "Oh man, you must be so much more free." Like, how do you not? Like, how do thoughts enter your brain? Like, I have a me communicating with me at all times, like as everything is being experienced. And that movie captures it so interestingly, the stream of consciousness, but also very focused. I mean, it is very focused on relationships specifically, but it's bigger than that. The dialogue is just unmatched. He's never been better. Woody Allen's writing, and he's a phenomenal writer, but he's never been better. And the performances across the board. Yeah, that's just a very special film to me. And it's one that I return to probably once a year, to make sure that I'm still on course. The newest film on the list, maybe that's not the other two are newer. That one's from the late 70s, early 80s. And Rashomon's, of course, from the 50s. And the early aughts, the early millennium, for me, we've got Memories of Murder. Oh no, Memories of Murder definitely would be on their Bong Joon-ho's Memories of Murder. Came out the same year as Old Boy, which was my introduction to Korean cinema. Phenomenal film. But as I've grown and seen more, Memories of Murder is the one that really just locks me in. It's Bong Joon-ho's. It's my favorite of his. Parasite's a masterpiece, but Memories of Murder is the one I love going back to. And I lied. The other one's not going to be from the millennium. The other one, I can't do a list like this without bringing up the master, my main man, Ingmar Bergman, with Cries and Whispers from the 70s. Cries and Whispers, another one, predominantly all-female cast, much like Hannah and Her Sisters. And amazing exploration of these human beings going through trauma and going through grief, but also at the same time so incredibly visceral and beautiful and pastoral and patient. It's such a patient film, even with all the shocking imagery that you get, especially for the time. Like there's scenes in that now, if played, that people would be like, it might as well just be an A24 film, like it just like some of the shocking aspects of it, but no one can do poetry better than Ingmar Bergman. And he's the great. It all roots back to Ingmar for me. So those are my three. Plus
Excellent.
one.
And the bonus fourth.
And the bonus fourth, of course.
Excellent. All right. Well, now we shift back to Sarah again for a film that is underrated.
Okay. I'm a big Wes Anderson fan, so I would probably say The Life Aquatic. I absolutely love that film. That one, and I'm also going to say Rushmore. Those are my two favorites. Primarily the music. I love the music in both of them. The colors are just absolutely gorgeous. And it's very captivating, just the way it's almost like you're looking at a painting in every single scene. And that's what I love about his work. So I would say those two definitely.
Yeah, and they're underrated because people tend to go on and on about some of his other films.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Life Aquatic is more than just a cute little Jacques Cousteau salute. It's
right.
It's an insanely good movie. I love that movie.
It's so good.
All right, Brandon. Underrated?
Underrated. Underrated film would be another one of my all-time favorites is and it's only underrated because it should be marveled as one of the greatest comedies ever made, and I'm not usually as big of a comedy guy. It's not my first favorites usually, but My Favorite Year, with Peter O'Toole, from the 80s. It was adapted into a musical that high schools do sometimes, which I've never seen the musical. I don't know that I ever will. But Peter O'Toole in that film and the exploration of the TV/film industry, the banter, the timing, it is a perfect comedy. It is so delicious and fun. And the fact that it is not on every single best comedy of all time list is beyond me. How phenomenal this is, and that Peter O'Toole gives one of the best comedy performances ever. Like, he's an amazing actor across the board, but like, he did comedy every now and again. And they talk about What's Up Pussycat was one of his earlier films and one of the first comedies he was in, and he's fine in that. But My Favorite Year, man, like, not only is that hysterical, it's such a part of my childhood. And like, that's in my bones. That's such an underrated film, such a great comedy.
Absolutely. I remember when it came out, I was lucky enough to be a huge Peter O'Toole fan as a kid, because when I was in middle school, a film called The Stuntman came out.
Mm-hmm.
And my parents took me to see it just because they wanted to see it. So they took my brother and I, and it was wildly inappropriate for us, I think.
Sure. Yeah.
But Peter O'Toole was insane in that film.
So good.
So good that I became someone who just wanted to see everything he'd ever done. Because, of course, when you're a kid, you think you want to follow an actor's career. And then you get a little older, you realize, I should follow the directors, right? Because
for sure,
Peter O'Toole didn't really control whether or not he was in a good film or not.
Yeah. And plus, the other thing that this isn't what makes it an underrated film, but I have such fond memories of that film with both my mom and my dad, which was rare because they didn't have the same movie tastes. And my dad's the one that quoted it all the time. It was like household, you had to know how to do the next line in the movie to keep the banter going. But also, I remember so distinctly, my mom had the most beautiful, infectious, uncontrollable laughter. Like, when she started having a laughing fit, it was just the most wonderful thing. And every single time he's drunk and they have him tied up to the suitcases, and they're pulling him up the stairs, and he starts thinking of the music, and he starts going bum 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 to the timing of him being yanked up to the next stair. The drunken scenes, like, just all of it. Go ahead and lash me, you fool. I'll not loosen my tongue. And all of it is just, it's so, everyone that likes comedies should watch it, and everyone that doesn't should still fall in love with it. Totally underrated.
Absolutely. I'm going to share a story I heard on Letterman in the 80s, which Peter O'Toole was on Letterman, and I can't quite grasp the context or what film he was talking about, but he said one morning, I think they were he was shooting a John Huston film in Africa or something, and they didn't have to, it was a day off. And he said he woke up in bed, and at the foot of his bed was John Huston with like 2 bottles. And he looked at him and said, "Today is a day for drinking."
Perfect.
And he said, "I have no memory of that day besides the 2 of us riding horseback naked." Something like that. So
excellent.
Drink responsibly, but there's something about that generation of drunks that was somewhat charming.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Well, had to share that since I thought you'd appreciate it. All right. We're back to Sarah for an overrated film.
Okay. And this is no hate to them at all, because I do follow some of these films, but the Marvel films, just overall, I mean, when they first started coming out, it was really, really exciting. But now I just kind of feel like they've lost a lot of that spark. Like when the first Iron Man movie came out, it was like, wow. First Thor movie, wow. And now it's just kind of, they're all redundant and it's just basically the same formula over and over and over again. And it makes me sad because I do like Marvel comics. But again, no hate to them. I just feel like there's so many coming out at one time and they're all just the same.
Yeah, and there's not, for a little while, there was a wonderful, right, the Thanos Infinity Stone story sort of carried us along for a good while.
Yes.
But now, like, is there really a reason to go watch a bad guy almost win and then the good guys figure out a way to win? Like,
right.
I don't know. I'm kind of over it too.
It's kind of boring.
I have much harsher opinions of the Marvel things, which I won't get into. Yeah.
Well, and it's obviously we've hit a point where the Disney Corporation has purchased nearly all the competition and they just have to monetize what they've done. And so they maybe they're not making Marvel films for the right reason anymore, which is there's great stories to tell. They're like, the money has to be made
right
to feed the beast.
Yes.
And it's showing in the quality.
It is. Absolutely.
Yeah. Definitely agree. I would say for this category, most films being made now are overrated in general. You know, but I don't want to take pot shots at films that are current. So I'm gonna go further back to something no one's gonna care about when it comes to a film that was overrated because it won its Academy Award back in like the 70s, I think, and that's Tom Jones. It is a terrible, like, I hate that film so much. Talking about comedies, it's one of the few comedies that have really ever won an Academy Award. And I went through a period where I was watching everything that ever won Best Picture, and I got to Tom Jones, and like it tarnished it for me. Like I was like, it's so, and it's not overrated now because no one's watching it now. So I feel very comfortable kind of giving it a kick a little bit right now. And I mean, the performances were fine, don't get me wrong, but the kind of like heightened comedy and like the speeding around, like the acceleration of the camera and all that other kind of stuff, or the frame rate rather, just did not hit for me. Totally underrated. Shouldn't have gotten all the nominations and wins, other than for Albert Finney, who deserved his nominations for anything that he ever got one for.
For sure. Yeah. Early 60s.
60s rather, yes.
Yeah, early 60s pre-counterculture sex romps.
Yeah.
Are they are of their time. Right.
And I love a good sex romp. It's just they couldn't really accomplish it back then.
No, and honestly, yeah, I'm with you. I don't even know if I've ever seen the whole thing.
Well, now you know it's underrated. Don't even bother. No, that's
overrated.
Not true. Overrated. That's what I meant to say.
Overrated for good. All right. Well, last question is a lesser known film that people should seek out.
Okay. So this one is called I'm a Cyborg, but That's Okay. I love that movie. It's cute in its own weird way.
Great pick, Sarah.
Thank you. And that's one of the films that got me into Korean films, because I am a big fan of Japanese films, but when I saw this one, I was hooked, and then I just started watching a whole bunch of other ones. But definitely, I'm a Cyborg, but That's Okay. It's an adorable little love film.
Excellent. I haven't seen it, although admittedly I'm horribly ignorant of Korean cinema.
Oh my gosh, you have such a world that you could enter. It's some of the
world.
Best films being made in the last 20 years.
That's what I keep getting wind of. But you know, when I'm kind of unhip, and I'm focused on these film festivals, so I don't get a chance to delve into something.
Oh my gosh, Jeff, the world that could open up for you with so there's such good film. Like I was so excited to be ahead of the wave of excitement about Korean films, like the filmmaker people and the into film buff people, but like mostly the film geeks, were into like Old Boy and stuff when it was first out. And then everybody was like, oh yeah, Old Boy's really good. And then there was like so many others that they were creating some of the best work consistently. And then when Parasite came around, I felt like I was so ahead of the curve, where I was like, when it got all the nominations, I was super excited. And then when it actually won, I was like, this is the best night. Like I was so elated. Like it felt like I was winning the awards with Bong Joon-ho. Like he just kept getting invited back up to the stage, and he was so humble and so like sweet and like culturally speaking, like paying respects to all the other people that were nominated, because they had been around longer than him, and him devoting some of his speech to Martin Scorsese, like all of it, so lovely. But Park Chan-wook, director of both Old Boy and the film Sarah mentioned, I'm a Cyborg, but That's Okay. Yeah, if you just start with the two of them, just watch all the filmography of Bong Joon-ho and watch all the filmography of Chan-wook Park. And if you are not completely hooked with Korean cinema, I don't know how that wouldn't happen for you. It's so wonderful.
Excellent. All right. Well, I should still have you name a lesser known to seek out.
Yeah.
But I will do that. I promise.
You should. I mean,
it's on my list.
You don't have to do it for me. You should be doing it for you. Like,
I know. I know.
It's like you're in for such a wonderful trip. Lesser known. I'm not going to go way back. We're just going to go back to the 90s, and we're going to go to something in English, and we're going to go major stars in it, but mostly before they were stars. Sean Penn in the early 90s thought he might quit acting and decided to become a writer-director. And his very first film was called The Indian Runner. And it stars a young Viggo Mortensen. Actually, it stars David Morose, and Viggo Mortensen plays his brother. And it also has Dennis Hopper is in it. And also Charles Bronson is in it. And Patricia Arquette. And this sounds terrible because I don't remember her name, but she was in Rain Man, the love interest in that. And Big Top Pee-wee, Valeria.
Yep,
that sounds right.
The Italian. Yes. I know who you're talking about.
And it also has the last performance of this. I'm going to need to look up because I don't want to disrespect her. It has the final performance of, getting her name right now, Sandy Dennis. She won her Academy Award Best Supporting Actress for Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf years before, and it has her final performance. And it is a film that should have been made in the 70s. It feels like a film made in the 70s, even though it was made in the 90s, which won't mean maybe too much to people now watching it because it's out of its time already by 30 years. But it's even further out of its time. And I was on a Viggo kick when I was young, when I was a teenager, because Lord of the Rings was out, and he became a hero of mine because he was also an artist and a poet, and obviously a phenomenal performer. And I started watching all of his work, and I came across The Indian Runner, and I was a young man, not even a man yet, maybe 16, 17-ish, maybe 18 tops when I came across it. And it's the writing from Sean Penn, you could tell that he was dealing with the duality in himself, because the one older brother, is a police officer, and he's got a home and a wife and a little baby girl, as I recall, and that they're teaching to be bilingual. And and his brother has always been a hard case. That's Vigo's character, and has just never gotten it together, and is just full of rage and all this stuff. Emblematic of a role that you'd picture Sean Penn playing. And you can feel him wrestling with these demons inside himself, and also this desire to, be secure. And then instead of performing it, like, he felt the need that he had to write it and direct it and cast these other people in it. And Vigo gives a performance that you'd imagine Sean Penn doing. And he just is amazing, like, so amazing. Like, if indie films were as big now in some ways, like, they were big in the 90s. What am I saying, with Sundance and everything? But if it would have gotten the attention that those kind of things can get and do get now, Vigo would have been huge from jump. Academy Award nomination, Spirit Award for sure. He is so good in that performance. And it's been totally slept on, this movie. And so that's definitely my lesser known. Everybody's got to go find it and watch it, because it's a special gem that's hidden away in there.
For sure. I remember when it came out. It's because he was kind of the it boy, right? Sean Penn was just huge at that point. And the fact, I always loved how he when he chose to direct and write, he didn't put himself on screen, like in any of those films. I just thought that was so impressive. I actually like everything he's directed.
Yeah,
he's 3 or 4 films, but
yeah, he's up to like 4, maybe 5 now. He directed a couple that he didn't write, at least one that he didn't write. And it has a cameo before he was anybody of Benicio del Toro.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. The Indian
awesome.
Runner. Very
Indian
good one.
Runner.
Yeah, I know. Isn't Vigo? We should wrap this up. But isn't Vigo like the biggest question mark in the world? Like, I don't understand. I guess he's just that. His integrity is. What I'm trying to say is, why don't I see like Vigo in 3 movies a year? Like, I don't understand it.
It's by his choice, yeah, because he's doing his art and he's doing his little indie films, and he's working with Cronenberg.
I was going to say he jumps at anything Cronenberg. He wants to be, and he's
multilingual, so he's doing Spanish films sometimes, and others, Argentinian films, and he's all over the place doing whatever he wants to do, whatever is inspiring him.
Yeah, which is excellent.
And I can't talk about Vigo on something like this without quickly mentioning that I did get to meet him in person when I was a kid. I was 16, and it was right when he didn't realize how famous he was from Lord of the Rings yet. And it's a much longer story that I won't completely go into, but just to boil it down, he ended up taking some of my writing, some of the poetry that I had written, because he was taken with my photography, and I was about the age of his son at the time, and he could see how much he meant to me, and he actually sent it back to me with a letter, a handwritten letter that I still have today. And one of my personal goals is to someday be able to sit across the table from him and pitch him a movie, have him agree to it, and then after he's agreed to it, on the actual merits, be able to show him the letter and be like, it's taken me 30 years, however many years, but you gave this to a kid who it meant the world to, and now I'm actually here, and we're making a movie that you agreed to do, not knowing all of that sappy stuff, I mean, unless he's listening to this podcast, but yeah, that's a dream of mine.
For sure. I think the odds are remote that this will spoil that possible moment. But
sure. Thanks, Jeff. Otherwise, we're going to need to cut it.
Yeah. No, I don't think we'll have to cut it, because, he's good. All right. Well, thank you both so much. What should I mention? I'll just mention, people just heard your taste in films, both of you. So that was Sarah Cugini and Brandon Lay. And if you want to see their work, go to livingproofpictures.com. And people can see lots of good stuff, as well as hop on your Patreon and be supporters of the arts. People doing independent shit, man. Come on. Stop thinking that everyone who makes movies is rich. Like, we got to support people who are
making the real shit,
taking risks and doing creative stuff instead of sitting in a room. I mean, here we talked about Marvel briefly. I'll shit on Marvel a little more, or shit on Disney a little more, and just the reason why these films aren't good is they're being made by a committee that sits down and studies it and goes, okay, what will profit us the most? Mm-hmm. And they're not just going through scripts and going, oh, this story needs to be told.
Thanks, I appreciate that. Yeah.
Right? It's that's the key. Stories that need to be told. All right, so I will go on my final ramble and thank everyone for listening to this podcast. You should like and subscribe. If you're able to give it stars or 5 stars or 10, whatever, be kind. And be kind to Brandon and Sarah's work. Go on all the services, whether it's Amazon Prime Video or this, that, and the other, and give their shit 5 stars. Be good to them. You know what? And be good to me too. If you want to learn more about this podcast, go to discoverindiefilm.com. If you want to see a TV series that's an anthology of short films from the festival circuit, go to Amazon Prime Video and type in Discover Indie Film. If you want to interact on social media, believe it or not, I think I pretty much will respond to everybody who writes to us on there. So it's at DIF Wins. It was funny, like the first 15, I had to rename this podcast because it was called Discover Film. No one was using the thing Discover Film. And then one of the early guests on this podcast was invited to the Discover Film Awards in London. And he warned me, you might butt heads with them someday if you get too big. And I'm like, well, I don't think I'm going to get too big. But this podcast is all about indie films anyway. So change it from Discover Film to Discover Indie Film. And then everyone who'd done the podcast voted on a new handle for social media, and at DIF Wins won. Fun story. All right, so, and then the 2 film festivals, Sherman Oaks Film Festival every November, ShermanOaksFF.com, at ShermanOaksFF, and Film Invasion Los Angeles every June, FilmInvasionLA.com, at FilmInvasionLA. And I don't think I have to ramble off any more URLs, websites, or social media handles. Are your social medias on livingproofpictures.com?
They are, yeah. The links on all the Living Proof Pictures stuff.
I highly recommend people follow this stuff because I think you are both entertainingly fun people to interact with on social media.
Yeah.
Especially Sarah.
Mostly me.
Especially Sarah. People should.
Thank you.
Wait,
yeah.
Do you want to name your personal handle?
Oh, sure. You can just find me at Sarah, spelled with an H, spelled the right way. Cugini, Cugini. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram. And if you want to give me a follow, go ahead. I post lots of pictures of food and weird stuff.
I think that's wonderful. My personal social media, which I never give out, and I still won't give out here, is mostly pictures of my vegetable garden and meals and our guinea pig, because he's cute as fuck. All right, so anyway.
Sarah has a hedgehog.
Yes, I do.
You have a hedgehog?
I do, yes.
Wait a minute. Do you keep that? Is your hedgehog never on your social media?
No, because she's illegal in Pennsylvania.
Oh, I just blew it up. She's going to get arrested. Maybe you need to bleep that.
Yeah, you might need to take that out.
No, I don't think the authorities will hone in. The reason for my tone of voice is once you are a rodent fan,
yes,
social media targets you with cute rodents. And every time there's a hedgehog that comes up on my Instagram, I have to turn to the wife and say, look at this hedgehog, because they are the cutest motherfuckers alive. Oh
they
are.
God. They are. Except mine's a little bit of a bitch. She wasn't handled properly when she was young, and that's almost why I rescued her, because she almost got put down. So Even though she's mean sometimes, the cutest thing is she likes to crawl up and sit on my shoulder and play with my hair and then fall asleep.
That is, I want to stop on that image. I won't even bring anything else up. All right. Yeah. Everyone should write their Congress people and demand that hedgehogs be legalized in all 50 states.
Absolutely. I agree 100% on that.
All right. Sarah Cugini, Brandon Lane, thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you everyone for listening.